Hi, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. Growth Drive is the #1 best-selling business advising platform, and this is our podcast, The Business Advisor Hot Seat. Now, in the hot seat, you're going to hear from industry leaders, thought leaders, your colleagues who are going to share tips, techniques, war stories about building a thriving advisory business based on delivering client wins. We're going to get into it. We'll get into it about the Growth Drive methodology, the Clarity software, what we see out in the world, so much more than just the system. And I'm also the author of The Growth Driving Advisor, which is based on over a decade of being an advisor to advisor, working with you and your colleagues, helping them build their practices, helping them through client engagements, and it's really proven strategies for leading businesses from stuck to best in class. Check it out. So strap in. We're going to light this up. Here we go. Our guest this week is Greg Maddox. Greg is a certified exit planner. He's very active in a couple of exit planning communities. And Greg has a tremendous amount of expertise in helping owners identify and then make real their goals for their business. So fantastic business advisor, great conversation. Here we go. Well, welcome everyone. And this is going to be a fun conversation. I am here with Greg Maddox. No, not the baseball player. And Greg and I have known each other, collaborated, worked together for a very long time. I don't know, over a decade. Mm-hmm. Some good times, some productive stuff, also a lot of fun. And Greg, in fact, was instrumental, provided some of the modeling that you'll see in the equity value planner. And Greg, maybe I'll stop there. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself, talk about why clients hire you, and we'll jump in. So welcome. Thanks. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, George. Excited to be here. So I work at a company called Cultivate Advisors. We're all former business owners who partner with current business owners to help them, scale enterprise value to a freedom point that works for them. So either they can make work optional, step back operationally, still own the thing, take income, et cetera, from it, or if life is telling them it's time, or they get a curveball, net of taxes, fees, debt, percentage ownership to fund whatever's next, which for some of our clients, we had a client sell about a year ago where he's still young and still has desire to build another company. So he didn't need forever money. He needed enough to sell company one to give him the launch pad for company two with some breathing room. And of course, you have people at the other end of the spectrum as well. So I think we're not transactional, so people don't hire us to help them sell, but we collaborate with the tax, legal, wealth, pay, and whoever, all the other kind of specialized experts who come in and out of the orbit of a successful business owner over time. But we focus purely on the business. In a holistic view, we're kind of like private equity without the equity. We look at, from a strategic standpoint, finance, sales, marketing, leadership, recruiting, productivity, and as a way to just kind of quickly bucket down a business and come up with areas that need improvement, the stuff that will make the business healthier, the things that will get it closer to best in class, like we have in Clarity, and ultimately make it more fun to run and give them more choices and control while they're on the crazy journey of being an entrepreneur. Yeah, our clients are pretty sticky. They tend to stay with us for multiple years, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Casey, who your founder, another New Hampshire boy, and you guys, Cultivate is doing a great job. I agree with you that you are private equity without having an operator breathing down your neck. So if you want someone if you're a business owner and you're listening to this, if you want someone who you're paying and who is going to be your peer rather than someone you've sold to and is going to be looking over your shoulder. I mean, I'm not, a lot of operators, but you guys do a great job. Let's talk about, if it's okay with you, let's focus in on the freedom point, that lifestyle point. And there's so much that goes into discovering what that number is going to be. And well, I haven't rejoined to that, but I'd love to hear your perspective on how you view that freedom point.
Yeah. So it's a loaded question. If you ask a business owner, hey, how much do you need to sell your business for? They don't really know. As much as possible, the $1 billion, or they might have a number that's just in their head. It'd be great. I could hold my head high if I sold a business for X, which is all valid. The way that I approach it is more based on, hey, listen, with or without this business, what's the all-in lifestyle that you want to live? And it could be how you're paying yourself right now, salary, bonus, perks, distributions. If you're not there yet, what is the
Add
number?
back.
Yeah, the add backs, like what is the number that you would allow you to make work optional? If you had that cash flow coming in from other sources, even not just from the operating company. And if we use that number, we could then reverse engineer, what pile of resources does somebody need to not be wholly relying on the operating company to supply that lifestyle. And then you can compare that in exit planning. There's a couple gaps that you look at. One is a wealth gap and one's a value gap. Wealth gap is just the difference between the pile of resources they need to make work optional and live the way they want to live without taking a haircut and what they've got.
Right? And what they have that is actually can be made liquid quickly.
Yeah. I'm not talking about the net worth inside of their business. I'm talking about resources, income and liquid assets separate, and income producing assets separate from the operating company that would allow them to live the way they want to live. And usually most of their money is tied up inside their business. It's that concentration of wealth problem. So there's usually a gap between the amount of wealth they have separate from the business and what they need. That's gap number one. Gap number two is, let's just be honest, most business owners are not likely going to save their way all the way there. They could do some serious damage, but they're relying on their business to do most of the heavy lifting. And usually the current value of the company, because most owners are not focused on value, they're focused on income.
Yes.
And so they could have a business that's kicking off a lot of great income, but is it transferable? Is it valuable to somebody else? So usually the current value, if you're honest and get a third party worldview of it, it's less than the value you need to sell it for enough, pay taxes, fees, debt, your percentage ownership, and walk with enough to fund that wealth gap. So the two gaps, the wealth gap and then the value gap. And so the way that I use those two gaps and combine them into one conversation that a business owner resonates with is the freedom point. The freedom point is simply connects the dots between those two and says, hey, what's the value at which we can make work optional? And we know that you could fund everything you want to fund next if you chose to, or you just step back operationally. The business is mostly running itself, or the team's running most of it. You're just involved in the stuff that excites you still, that you're still motivated to do, that gives you energy, but you also have time and money to do other stuff. So you have some choice control over your life.
It's interesting, Greg. There are a couple of things I'd like to unpack. One, just an observation. When we hold workshops, certification workshops, facilitation workshops, et cetera, one of the questions as we're getting started is about retirement for the people in the room, for the advisors in the room. Mm-hmm. And something you just hit on, and I think it's true of a lot of entrepreneurs and advisors are more often than not entrepreneurs themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is they don't want to stop working, but they want to work on their own terms.
Yeah.
Which would bring me to, which is your freedom point, right? I mean, we use the term lifestyle in common. The other observation is we've recorded the exit planning 101, if you will, hour that's part of the C3D certification. And something we talk about in there, let's take EPI, right? They certify more exit planners than anyone, or BEI, who has certified more people than anyone because they've been around a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
Those two talk about 6 exit options, as does the IEPA, right? So all three of them have these 6 exit options in common. The 7th option, and we teach this in C3D, and something you just hit on, is the oil well option. I don't want to leave my business. I'm happy to die at my desk, but I want to exit the accountabilities chart to a point where I'm playing a strategic role as strictly like as a light touch CEO or as the chairman. Right. And that is definitely an option. Frankly, you want to save yourself a lot of agita, turn your business into an oil well from which you're going to extract wealth over time. Anyway, just a couple of observations.
Yeah, I find I've, led group discussions on this, did talks and stuff. And it surprises me how many business owners are unaware of what I call the exit operation. You call the oil well. I have a client who calls it the check of the month club, So like whatever you want to call it, but so many business owners are not aware that this is a legit option.
Sure.
And all it is just good business strategy, building a good business that produces great work, time, and money for you. So guess what? That makes it way more valuable, makes it way more transferable and sellable, not to mention more fun to run,
Yeah.
easier for you
And
to,
immortal, right? That is an immortal business, because if
yeah.
and when that person stops working completely, the business keeps churning along.
The other thing I like about the Freedom Point concept is that it's just one way to conversationally wrap up those two gaps.
Yes.
You have to solve both as a business owner. Most business owners are not solving either intentionally. They're doubling down on themselves in the business. The business is their best asset for sure. It just can't be their only asset.
Yes.
So by bringing awareness to it, hey, this is what the wealth gap is. For you to make work optional, if you have a pile of resources that looks like this, you could. Well, what's the benefit of doing that? And there is a balancing act, by the way, to still grow a business or scale a business fast and separate some wealth once you get the business healthy enough. And once you get past the, predictable profits and cash flow, right? And you start moving up the ladder of the dimensions of wealth. So when you start doing that, though, and separating a little bit of wealth, working with the right tax legal wealth team to do that and all the fancy ways that they know how to do that, it actually makes you a better entrepreneur.
Yes.
It frees you up mentally and financially to take better calculated risks inside your business, because every swing is not betting the whole farm, right?
Yes.
That if this thing doesn't work out, because for most business owners, their liquid or their net worth on paper, their income, the equity, everything is tied up inside of that business. So if the business takes a hit, whether it's from a bad decision or things that they can't control, their whole financial world takes a hit as well. And the timing of that could be horrible. Like I had a client who was a smaller business, was going to sell for about a couple mil. And, she got multiple offers. We helped her find the M&A folks and helped her get packaged up and, worked with her team that was doing the transaction. She found the one. And then we were 2 weeks away from closing, and this was March 2020. And so COVID happens and pulls, all the money freezes up, pulls back. Social distancing killed her business. She had to downsize a lot and then struggle back over the next couple of years to build it back to something. Yeah. And she ended up selling it 2 years later with the same team, but for half, a little less than half. But it was half the business at that time. Now, the good news is that she believed in this idea of, yes, we got to do great work. We got to treat people right. All that's table stakes for being in business. But she also viewed her company as a wealth creation machine. And she had separated money along the way religiously. So she already had several $1 million liquid separate from the business, more than she needed to live her life the way she wanted to live without the business. So she didn't need that sale in order to survive post business. It was more of a pride thing. You don't put 20 years into something, have the rug pulled out from underneath you, and just walk away from it. She needed to build it back to something. It still stung. It was not fun. Those were not a fun couple years. But thank God that she did use her business to create personal wealth separate from it along the way, because she was fine. Imagine if it was like most business owners, where it's mostly tied up inside of the walls of the business. Yeah. And all of a sudden that happened. She was like around 60-ish when this happened 4 or 5 years ago. She'd still be working today, if that was the case. So we don't know what's going to happen. So by paying attention to that Freedom Point conversation, it does a couple things. It allows us to frame up all the work that we're doing inside the business that's going to make that possible. Yep. And the only reason a business owner cares is because they're thinking about that lifestyle. I'm making $500,000 now. I don't want to take a haircut. So how big do I have to grow the business? And how big a pile of resources do I need eventually? But let's target on the value that I have to grow to in order to be able to either make work optional or sell it for enough to fund all that. And so every decision that we're making inside the business is based on, is that getting us closer to our freedom point or not? And that also connects the dots back to the tax legal wealth team that they should be working with
That they
along the
should be
way.
working with you.
Yeah, to take advantage of all the different planning opportunities, asset protection, tax reduction, wealth creation and transfer, life after. And so it's a nice way for business owners to wrap their brain around it in a way that makes sense. And then once they understand the kind of work that, growth drivers do, where you can accelerate value, you work on the right stuff. We don't have to, I call it business owner math. Most business owners do not understand business owner math because we talked about earlier, they're used to chasing income.
Yes.
So I add $1 of revenue to add $1 of profit, which especially if you were a founder, like who created something from nothing, that is like critical. But at some point, business owner math is about multiplication, not addition.
Not addition. Yes, sir.
The way that, for your audience who may not know, the way businesses are valued, it's typically profit times some industry multiple, and that's on a range. Healthier, better businesses that are more transferable, less dependent on the owner, higher up, bigger multiple. People who have owned more of a job, maybe it's not sellable at all, or it's a much, much lower multiple. Maybe it's 1 or 2 versus 7 or 8. So if we focus on the stuff that moves you from 0 or 1 or 2 up to 3, 4, 5, 6, I can grow revenue at a normal pace, whatever that is for them. And profit comes along for the ride. And then making the business healthier, we get an extra turn, an extra turn, an extra turn on multiples. And now you can get the hockey stick on the value line, which allows you to collapse time. So we usually see it's a 3 to 5 year window to get someone from current value to freedom point value with a normal revenue growth, for them. And, incidentally, we now in cooking at Cultivate, we've made the Inc. 5000 the past 6 years in a row for fast growing companies. All the stuff we're working with our clients on, we're doing internally to scale our company for some eventual, transaction, in the future. So I like to tell people becoming a business coach, wasn't our first business, at Cultivate Advisors.
Yeah. It's interesting. So you're having, in the growth drive methodology, we have the growth conversation. We use the strategy planner to lead a conversation about, and it has color of exit planning, where does the story lead? Where does this need to end up? Which what we're trying to do is connect personal, family, legacy, taking care of stakeholders, et cetera, with the business. And something you just said that I want to underscore. What you said in Cultivate terms is similar to what we say in growth drive terms, which is we do need to increase your gross and net income, but we also have to increase the strategic capacity of your business, its attractiveness to the private capital markets. And I think you and I use the same. We can do an internal transfer, but if we aim for the private capital markets, we have several options, and we've held ourselves to the highest standard.
Yeah, well, and the internal transfer too, it just underscores the need to be dealing with the personal track along with the business track. I had this conversation with clients earlier this week. They have a successful construction business, a specialty contractor, and they're crushing it, over 20 million in revenue and 30% margins.
Nice.
Bottom. They have young kids. Daughter is graduating college, son who's getting ready to go to college. And they're not sure, do we want to sell it to a third party eventually? They do want more control over the time, right? But if they want to sell it to the kids or to the managers at some point, if they haven't financially built their empire separate from the business, it'll be very difficult for them to truly exit mentally, because they were micromanaging over the shoulder to make sure that paycheck is coming in, because those people are not going to have money to write them a big fat check for the thing that they've got, which is super valuable right now. So not only does it make life easier, make you a better business owner by taking a more holistic approach, focusing on enterprise value, picking a target that reverse engineers to the lifestyle you want with or without the business, and being cognizant of that there's 2 gaps to solve: your personal wealth gap, separate from the business, and the value of your business, which is going to make all that stuff possible. And if we focus on the business, that is the goose that's laying the golden eggs. That allows us to hit those things really fast over a short period of time and give you lots of options. So I tell owners, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself. Our clients are so used to serving others, making the world better in their little corner of it, take care of their employees, the whole ripple effect of the vendors that they might use, et cetera, that sometimes I think they feel it's selfish or greedy for them to be thinking about themselves. And that's real. It's also,
Very real.
but it's not true.
Yeah.
So it's not greedy. You start a business to create more freedom in your life, right? Table stakes is doing good work and treating people right. You won't stay in business for long if you don't do those two things. But the irony is, the more successful we become as business owners, oftentimes the less freedom we have, because we get just caught up in the machinery of owning a job and not truly a business that thrives without us.
Hey, Greg, man, we're growing this thing, and I'll tell you, I love my work, but I will just I will testify to what you just said. 4:30 in the morning, I'm no stranger, and being at the kitchen table with Australia or New Zealand in the middle, or ANZUS in the middle of the evening is totally normal. And sometimes it feels like I'm not working for me. I'm working and I'm glad to, right? I'm a giver. I'm glad to do it, but I feel like I'm working for everyone else. And it's never oh, woe is me. But you do, we care as entrepreneurs. You've been an entrepreneur, you've run businesses. We care profoundly about, and I make this point repeatedly, our employees and making payroll, sure, making sure we pay our taxes and all that. Yes. But our suppliers, our vendors, our distributors, all of those people we care profoundly about them. And that's what makes, I think, a successful.
So yeah, I think it's part of the DNA of a successful entrepreneur. If you didn't care about that, it'd be hard to build something of value or significance.
Yeah, great.
But it's also could be the Achilles heel. It's just surround yourself with good people, take a more holistic approach to it, understand that you can grow way faster than you thought to a number that will, give you lots of choices and control over your life. And if you're bringing the right types of tax legal wealth folks in early, there's a significant amount of tax savings, of wealth creation, of asset protection, things that they can do to make your world significantly better. And oftentimes they need a little lead time for that. You can't wait until, hey, I'm going to sell. Like the advanced planning attorneys that I work with, they tell me all the time, like I get these calls, hey, I'm closing in less than 6 months. I'm closing in 3 months.
It is too late.
Can you wave your magic wand and fix my tax problem? He's like, well, if this was a year and a day ago, maybe, but there's not often a lot that you could do at the very, very end. So just good strategy at the end of the day, build a great business, turning it into an asset, realize that we're doing it for ourselves and our families as much as we're doing it for the people and causes that we support through the business. And it's okay. It's okay to build a holistic plan. And that's another reason that the term freedom point based on lifestyle resonates with owners, because it allows them to think about, okay, what's that all in lifestyle, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, that you want with or without this business? And by using the term lifestyle, it is an accelerator in their brain. We don't have to necessarily do a half-day workshop on vision, because if you're thinking, okay, all in lifestyle, if I got $500,000 or it's $1 million or it's 300, whatever the number is, what cars do I drive? What house do I live in? Where do my kids go to school? What kind of vacations do we take? How much extra flow do I have for a rainy day? How much extra do I have for like my community or other causes that I care about?
Yeah, that's very important. Sure.
Yeah, that's like, it's one word that connects the dots quickly in an owner's brain about all those things that matter to them. And then you say, okay, if that's the number, let's reverse engineer a plan to turn the business into rocket fuel for that we can get there very, very quickly. And that's the thing that shocks most owners, is how fast you could go from current state to freedom point state and solve both of those gaps. Now, that doesn't mean you want to sell, doesn't mean you're thinking about selling. Everybody gets hung up on exit is a 4-letter word,
It's funny. I'm just busy thinking that same on that same line. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's it. People get hung up on the fact that, so this is all about exit planning. No, I got clients who never want to leave or are still figuring it out. They don't know. Like they're enjoying the journey is with the ups and downs of the daily, but we're changing mindsets around. It's okay to focus on us too as owners. So what is it that you guys need? Let's make sure that that's happening, that we have the parallel path of planning going. So we got you covered on the business front, and we'll collaborate with whoever we need to collaborate with, internal, external, to pull this off. But we can't ignore the personal front because there's
That's
so
right.
much good work that could be done. The difference maker is huge, and we can't wait to the end and assume that I'll just have a big fat exit and that's going to solve everything for me.
Well, and what's interesting, and that's why specifically, I'll use my IME minds. I call it equity value planning, right? Exit has a lot of implications, but if we simply plan the future equity value of the business, and you and I, in our experience, I don't have to put a percentage on it. I would say essentially always one needs to increase the value and almost always the sellability, right? The ability, the value, what we call the value capacity, the ability to monetize. Now, what a lot of folks don't get is doing that work is going to necessarily strategic capacity or buyability, sellability, a must-have company, whatever you want to call it. Those best-in-class businesses have attributes that we all want. They generate predictable, they predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the private capital markets want to buy. Predictably and sustainably growing free cash flow, FCF. And that's, if you think about what goes into that business, we have a business that is easier, that for the owner is easier to run. I notice I didn't say easy, but easier to run, that is growing sustainably, not in a chaotic cash gobbling, been there. But you're perforce improving the company in so many different ways, which is what you do, and so many people in the community, growth drivers, do every day. Yeah, it's good. It's great work.
Yeah, you hit something there. It's really important. A lot of times people think that, like, in the future when my business is bigger, it will be easier. And the truth is, it doesn't get easier as your business grows. You have to become stronger and better as a leader,
Yes.
as a developer of people, process, and systems. If you don't do that, chances are your business is not going to grow that big. Or it just certainly won't get easier because you're just going to be chief cook and bottle washer and insert yourself into every bit of it.
One of my closest friends is going through that right now. Yeah.
Force all the decisions through you. All the relationships are with you, micromanaging everything. You think you're delegating, but you're not empowering anybody to actually do stuff without you. So if you leave, even for vacation or walk away for a little bit, things definitely slow down, if not come to a grinding halt. The way to get better at that is you have to expand your own skill sets and mindsets around leadership. Mm-hmm. That's why in our methodology, we use the term leadership for all things operational. There's like kind of 6 key areas that we focus on. You got finance is the core. We got to understand the numbers and the model, and you use data to make decisions and do projections and budgets, actual, all that stuff.
Agreed.
On the growth side of the house, there's sales and marketing. We got to be able to
we call that revenue.
Yeah. How many widgets we want to sell, what our conversion metrics are, how many at-bats we need to go make that happen, how we're going to go attack the market to get in front of enough people to make that happen. And then on the capacity side, you've got leadership, which is the big tent around how you deliver on the sales promise. Founder-led companies, for entrepreneurial companies, leadership is a better term than operations, because it's really how do you lead the team to get the results. Yeah. It forces you to focus on your biggest and best asset in the business, which is your people. And unless you're a tech firm, maybe, and you've got, killer code that does everything. But, how do you lead the team? What is it? Do we have job descriptions with, KPIs that are tied to comp? What is the rhythm of how we communicate and hold people accountable and develop them, over time? How do we actually do the work? Do we have systems and process that's documented in a way that people can be cross-trained, or people can go on vacation, or if a key person walks out the door, all that institutional knowledge doesn't walk out the door with them?
Yeah,
and
yes.
Recruiting is, self-explanatory. If you're doing projections out into the future and you're looking at, okay, if I hit those numbers, at what point do I bury my team? and so you can reverse engineer when you might need to start adding team members. And productivity is
which
large.
is always, that's why, we see our cash S curve, right? But it is always going to cost. There's always a lag between those investments. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs don't get. You have to have the institutional patience and the institutional fat, if you will, to be able to afford the time and money it takes to make that person truly productive, which is almost always at least a year.
Well, and if you go back to, that's why we say that financials are the center of this engine. You need to be using data to make decisions. So that means you need to be doing projections and tying that to cash, so that when you're mapping these things out and you're looking in the future going, my team's going to be buried. We hit these numbers by July, by end of summer, the team's going to be buried.
Yeah.
So what's our recruiting plan? How long does it take to find somebody? We need to start reverse engineering when we need to start doing this. Now we can also start looking at, will I have enough cash? It's interesting. We've worked with thousands of business owners. You often come up with smaller or private company owners who are like, you can't forecast in my business. My industry is just different. You can't forecast.
I'm a unicorn. Yeah.
I can't forecast. They're confusing predicting the future with creating it. They're trying. The reason they can't forecast is because they're thinking they have to exactly say, this is when I know money is going to land. This is exactly how it's going to flow. And it's like, we just don't know. I said, yeah, it's fine. We don't need to know. We need to create what we want, though. Let's put a flag out there and say, this is what I want to happen this year. And that's why another reason I like using the Freedom Point, because if you calculate the Freedom Point value, which you do in the equity planner, it also gives you a high level roadmap. So let's say you hit the Freedom Point in 5 years. It tells you what revenue and profit and an assumed multiple needs to be each year going back to now. So now, instead of just going, okay, so for 2025, I just want to grow a little bit better than I did in 2024. No, if we did the Freedom Point calculation, it gives me all 5 years in that example. So what does year one need to look like? That in this example would be 2025. How do I reverse engineer that? How do I make that happen? How many widgets do we have to sell? How much marketing do we have to do? How much production has to happen to pull all that stuff off? Now the business planning is indeed tied to personally what the business owner wants, as opposed to just generic, abstract, I want to grow by 10%, or I just want to hit a bigger number because it'll feel good.
And Greg, this is why we're friends, because you just described intent, right? Strategic intent, where we're going to go, and then understanding our capacity, our current capacity to reach that intent. Oh, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough cash. We whatever it is. We need to increase the effectiveness of our senior leadership team, and then being able to make the strategic capacity actionable, so that we increase in a and to your point, in a measured way. Because you're right, when we're growing a business, if we create attainable, they can be audacious, but attainable forecasts, and then we have a budget built around them, and we track our actuals, and we get better and better and better, which is, when you start tracking data, should happen.
Or you just like
we can create our own future. How do we make our dreams come true? And this is the work we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the cool thing about working with entrepreneurs, because pretty much anything's possible. It's like, what do you want? What do you want? We can create it. It's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
When I started with Cultivate, I'm in my 7th year now. Our BHAG.
Has it been 7?
Yeah.
Wow.
Our BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious Goals, for those listeners who might not know that acronym, was to get to 50 million in revenue by about now, I think. Well, then we did 30 last year. So we didn't quite hit 50, but we also perfected our business model. For the first time, Casey has been able to say, our model's now mature. Like, we're ready to really, and we've been scaling, like we've been hitting the 5,000 every year, but we've also been learning, like all small, we're 10 years old. So, the 7 years that I've been involved was, from almost the beginning. and you have a lot of learning. Your company and business changes as you grow through some of
Yes.
these milestones. And, and we do this for a living, and, we didn't always get it right. That's just reality. You have to be aware of what's working, what's not, and change it. So now we have a model where the new BHAG is 100 mil, and we're going to do that before the end of this decade. So it's accelerating. It's not if, it's just when.
Yeah.
And that's the big takeaway that I like to share with, my clients. I listen, don't worry about predicting the future. We're in the business of creating it. Let's map it out. You can call it strategic intent. You want to put whatever label on it.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about what you want. Freedom Point value is just a label that connects the dots from the personal, what someone really wants from owning a business, personally, freedom, choice, and control, and the business planning required that's going to make that a reality.
Absolutely.
Way better than
Absolutely. It's funny. We've already been talking for over half an hour, which is, as they always are. These are great conversations. Yeah, I'd love, maybe in wrapping up. Thanks, man. I really appreciate your insights. These are always such fun conversations. Maybe in wrapping up, we could talk for a moment about the emotional fuel that understanding your freedom point and really being committed to that freedom point. And I don't know if you do this, but discussing, verbalizing the implications of not reaching that freedom point, which is something we teach in the growth conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But can you comment on those emotions and the power of those emotions in the process?
Yeah. It's number one, it's an aha moment. Mm-hmm. Usually when you first do the calculation, that target enterprise value is a scary number for the client.
Yes.
Because it usually is bigger than the current value, and it's usually bigger than what they think is possible until they understand business owner math, which we talked about earlier, and how quickly, if we work on the right thing, because they're equating income, revenue with value. So if it's currently worth 3 and they're doing $8 million in revenue, and you tell them it has to be worth 30, they're multiplying 8 by 10 and going, oh my God, I got to build an $80 million a year company. I'm not sure I signed up for that, whereas, and all growth drivers know, like we could X the value and maybe X revenue, so if we just do the right work. So that's number one. It's an aha moment. It does connect with what they really want to do. We all love working. We love what we do in our business. We wouldn't start businesses if we didn't. But, people want to see their kids when they're awake at some point, not just, stick my head in when I got home from the office late and, kiss them on the forehead. We want to, I said there's 3 issues that we're solving. Number one, they own a job, not a business, even if it's a well-paying job. They tend to have all their financial eggs tied up in that business basket. And then in pursuit of solving those first 2 problems, they tend to over-sacrifice on the personal, family, and health front. Hashtag grind, it's all...
If I just work a little harder.
Yeah, instead of getting smarter and making better decisions, I'm just going to apply energy to it and hope. And usually that's not a sustainable thing. We can all white knuckle for a period of time. So the impact of getting it wrong is, all of that stuff can come burn down. We don't burn the candle at both ends for a period of time. And as an entrepreneur, we've all done it, right? But if you consistently do that, you do run the risk of burning it all down. Health, key relationships suffer. This happened to me. I ended up going through, I owned a mortgage company and a financial service company in parallel, where I got the benefit of going through the mortgage market meltdown and the subsequent 2009 financial crisis. What a great time to own both of those companies, right? So that was a stretch of a few years that was rough and financially put a strain on the business, put a strain on me and my marriage. There were other reasons, but it ended up leading to divorce. It led to health issues, for me, the stress of it, the very real implications of not getting this stuff right. The flip side of it, though, is why we focus on, that term lifestyle and freedom point is, what do we got to do to turn this business into an asset that can thrive without you? How can we have some freedom along the way while we're still growing it, while we haven't totally perfected it? It's not just an automatic freedom machine yet.
Yeah.
What do we got to do? I tell my clients, I said, okay, you need to have 104 free days a year. And a free day is just what it sounds like. It's anybody who knows strategic coach, they use the term free day. It's where you totally unplug. You're not sneaking in work. You're not texting. You're not answering the phone. You're not on your laptop. You're just doing you, whatever that is. Yeah. And that, by the way, should be different than planned vacation days. So we have free days. People go 104. I mean, that's crazy. I can't take a week away. How am I going to do 100 days? And I said, well, it's a pretty specific number. How do you think I came up with it? There's 52 weeks in the year. The 2 days at the end of the week or the weekend. Can we not at least aspire to not work evenings and weekends? Where we just unplug, a little bit, and then you can start sprinkling those in. Maybe a half day in the middle of the week here, eventually a couple days here. You start forcing your team to say, I'm not going to be available to solve all your problems, but I'm not going to be gone long enough for you to kill my company. And then, maybe it identifies some, cracks in the armor that need to be dealt with, that you could coach or put a system in place, et cetera. But it also gives you the ability as the owner to kind of go recharge and, come back ready to really fight and pull off big stuff in the business. And it does let the team realize that, oh, I need to step up. I need to be a leader inside of this. It kind of forces that to happen.
That's the difference between a leadership team, or typically a management team, right? And an effective senior leadership team. Yeah, I love that. By the way, I too, 08, 09, and 10, business cratered, brother died, divorced, lost my home. It was not a good time. Not a good time. And with all the negative, anyhow, that's a different topic for another day. But
I think
I'm with you, man.
It's good that for the first time, 09 was the first time, the aftermath of that I saw business people being honest when they were networking. Because prior to that, it was always like, how things go? Great,
Everything's fine. Yeah.
And then after 08, 09, it was like, oof, well, things could be better.
We're all in this lifeboat together. Yeah.
And so it removed ego from like, well, you must suck at what you do if you're having a hard time. And it brought it into reality of, no, it is normal, especially as life of an entrepreneur. You have lots of ups and downs and little fail. You're going to fail your way to success. We got things wrong inside of Cultivate and we're still crushing it, but it's only because we were aware of it and we decided to fix it. Data. And we're going to change in the future if we learn something different.
Yeah. You guys are using data to drive the business. And that's the name of the game. There's no good news or bad news. It's only data.
And we're not afraid to fail. We know that's just part of the journey, and that's okay.
And failing is a lesson, and often a much more valuable lesson than success.
Well, you're forced to pay attention to it.
That's a fact.
You could do something well and not know how to duplicate it because it just stars aligned, right place, right time. Things were easy, but it wasn't necessarily duplicatable.
Yeah.
Think about gifted kids who cruise through high school and then get to a rigorous college where they actually have to work to get grades. And it's not easy for them anymore. If they never had to work for it, they're like, how do I duplicate that success? Because it just happened. All I do is show up. I was the smartest kid in the classroom. Life is that way in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the playing field gets leveled. Well, that's an interesting analogy because the playing field gets leveled. You go to a great university, you go to a great graduate school, you operating in a silo, then you go and work for a truly great business. And life has weeded out all of the dummies, not that they're stupid or low IQ, but the people who couldn't hang in that environment, right? It's in that environment. Heck yes. And maybe that's a great place for us to wrap up this conversation. Greg, man, always fun. You shared a tremendous amount. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you learned. I'm sure you got more than one little golden nugget out of these, golden nugget out of this conversation. Thanks, man. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Anything in closing?
No, begin with the end in mind is, build what you want and don't be afraid to be a little selfish as a business owner because it's only going to magnify the results you do for everybody else, but you're doing it with intention for yourself and your family. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. David Burns said it, be a little more selfish. It might do you some good. And I couldn't agree with it more. All right, man. Greg, thank you.
Good to see you, George.
Hi, this is George. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe, like, and please take 2 seconds to leave a review. It tells the world that you like what we're doing, and it helps us understand how we can improve the show. Thank you, and see you next time.